Bezalel and Oholiab, along with everyone whom God has given the skill and know-how for making everything involved in the worship of the sanctuary as commanded by God, are to start to work. Moses summoned Bezalel and Oholiab along with all whom God had gifted with the ability to work skillfully with their hands. The men were eager to get started and engage in the work. They took from Moses all the offerings that the Israelites had brought for the work of constructing the sanctuary. The people kept on bringing in their freewill offerings, morning after morning. All the artisans who were at work making everything involved in constructing the sanctuary came, one after another, to Moses, saying, "The people are bringing more than enough for doing this work that God has commanded us to do." So Moses sent out orders through the camp, "Men, women, no more offerings for the building of the sanctuary." The people were ordered to stop bringing offerings. There was plenty of material for all the work to be done. Enough and more than enough. The tapestries. Then all the skilled artisans on the dwelling made 10 tapestries of fine twisted linen and blue, purple, and scarlet fabric with an angel cherubim design worked into the material. Each panel of tapestry was 46 feet long and 6 feet wide. 5 of the panels were joined together, and then the other 5. Loops of blue were made along the edge of the outside panel of the first set, and the same on the outside panel of the second set. They made 50 loops on each panel, with the loops opposite each other. Then they made 50 gold clasps and joined the tapestries together so that the dwelling was one whole. Next they made tapestries of woven goat hair for a tent that would cover the dwelling. They made 11 panels of these tapestries. The length of each panel was 45 feet long and 6 feet wide. They joined 5 of the panels together, and then the other 6, by making 50 loops along the edge of the end panel and 50 loops along the edge of the joining panel, then making 50 clasps of bronze, connecting the clasps to the loops, bringing the tent together. They finished it off by covering the tapestries with tanned ram skins dyed red, and covered that with dolphin skins. The framing. They framed the dwelling with vertical planks of acacia wood, each section of frame 15 feet long and 2¼ feet wide, with 2 pegs for securing them. They made all the frames identical, 20 frames for the south side, with 40 silver sockets to receive the 2 tenons from each of the 20 frames. They repeated that construction on the north side of the dwelling. For the rear of the dwelling facing west, they made 6 frames, with 2 additional frames for the rear corners. Both of the 2 corner frames were double in thickness from top to bottom and fit into a single ring, 8 frames altogether with 16 sockets of silver, 2 under each frame. They made crossbars of acacia wood, 5 for the frames on one side of the dwelling, 5 for the other side, and 5 for the back side facing west. The center crossbar ran from end to end halfway up the frames. They covered the frames with a veneer of gold, made gold rings to hold the crossbars, and covered the crossbars with a veneer of gold. They made the curtain of blue, purple, and scarlet material and fine twisted linen. They wove a design of angel cherubim into it. They made 4 posts of acacia wood, covered them with a veneer of gold, and cast 4 silver bases for them. They made a screen for the door of the tent, woven from blue, purple, and scarlet material and fine twisted linen with embroidery. They framed the weaving with 5 poles of acacia wood covered with a veneer of gold, and made gold hooks to hang the weaving and 5 bronze bases for the poles. The chest. Bezalel made the chest using acacia wood. He made it 3¾ feet long and 2¼ feet wide and deep. He covered it inside and out with a veneer of pure gold and made a molding of gold all around it. He cast 4 gold rings and attached them to its 4 feet, 2 rings on one side and 2 rings on the other. He made poles from acacia wood, covered them with a veneer of gold, and inserted the poles for carrying the chest into the rings on the sides. Next he made a lid of pure gold for the chest, an atonement cover, 3¾ feet long and 2¼ feet wide. He sculpted 2 winged angel cherubim out of hammered gold for the ends of the atonement cover, 1 angel at one end, 1 angel at the other. He made them of one piece with the atonement cover. The angels had outstretched wings and appeared to hover over the atonement cover, facing one another but looking down on the atonement cover. The table. He made the table from acacia wood. He made it 3 feet long, 1½ feet wide and 2¼ feet high. He covered it with a veneer of pure gold and made a molding of gold all around it. He made a border a handbreadth wide all around it and a rim of gold for the border. He cast 4 rings of gold for it and attached the rings to the 4 legs parallel to the tabletop. They will serve as holders for the poles used to carry the table. He made the poles of acacia wood and covered them with a veneer of gold. They will be used to carry the table. Out of pure gold he made the utensils for the table, its plates, bowls, jars, and jugs used for pouring. The lampstand. He made a lampstand of pure hammered gold, making its stem and branches, cups, calyxes, and petals all of one piece. It had 6 branches, 3 from one side and 3 from the other, 3 cups shaped like almond blossoms with calyxes and petals on one branch, 3 on the next, and so on, the same for all 6 branches. On the main stem of the lampstand, there were 4 cups shaped like almonds, with calyxes and petals, a calyx extending from under each pair of the 6 branches. The entire lampstand with its calyxes and stems was fashioned from one piece of hammered pure gold. He made 7 of these lamps with their candle snuffers, all out of pure gold. He used a 75-pound brick of pure gold to make the lampstand and its accessories. The altar of incense. He made an altar for burning incense from acacia wood. He made it 1.5 feet square and 3 feet high, with its horns of one piece with it. He covered it with a veneer of pure gold, its top, sides, and horns, and made a gold molding around it with 2 rings of gold beneath the molding. He placed the rings on the 2 opposing sides to serve as holders for poles by which it will be carried. He made the poles of acacia wood and covered them with a veneer of gold. He also prepared with the art of a perfumer the holy anointing oil and the pure aromatic incense. The altar of whole burnt offering. He made the altar of whole burnt offering from acacia wood. He made it 7.5 feet square and 4.5 feet high. He made horns at each of the 4 corners. The horns were made of one piece with the altar and covered with a veneer of bronze. He made from bronze all the utensils for the altar, the buckets for removing the ashes, shovels, basins, forks, and fire pans. He made a grate of bronze mesh under the ledge halfway up the altar. He cast 4 rings at each of the 4 corners of the bronze grating to hold the poles. He made the poles of acacia wood and covered them with a veneer of bronze. He inserted the poles through the rings on the 2 sides of the altar for carrying it. The altar was made out of boards, it was hollow. The wash basin. He made the bronze wash basin and its bronze stand from the mirrors of the women's work group who were assigned to serve at the entrance to the tent of meeting. The courtyard. And he made the courtyard. On the south side the hangings for the courtyard, woven from fine twisted linen, were 150 feet long, with their 20 posts and 20 bronze bases, and fastening hooks and bands of silver. The north side was exactly the same. The west end of the courtyard had 75 feet of hangings with 10 posts and bases, and fastening hooks and bands of silver. Across the 75 feet at the front, or east end, were 22.5 feet of hangings, with their 3 posts and bases on one side and the same for the other side. All the hangings around the courtyard were of fine twisted linen. The bases for the posts were bronze and the fastening hooks and bands on the posts were of silver. The posts of the courtyard were both capped and banded with silver. The screen at the door of the courtyard was embroidered in blue, purple, and scarlet fabric with fine twisted linen. It was 30 feet long and 7.5 feet high, matching the hangings of the courtyard. There were 4 posts with bases of bronze and fastening hooks of silver, they were capped and banded in silver. All the pegs for the dwelling and the courtyard were made of bronze. This is an inventory of the dwelling that housed the testimony drawn up by order of Moses for the work of the Levites under Ithamar, son of Aaron the priest. Bezalel, the son of Uri, son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, made everything that God had commanded Moses. Working with Bezalel was Oholiab, the son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan, an artisan, designer, and embroiderer in blue, purple, and scarlet fabrics and fine linen. Gold. The total amount of gold used in construction of the sanctuary, all of it contributed freely, weighed out at 1,900 pounds according to the sanctuary standard. Silver. The silver from those in the community who were registered in the census came to 6,437 pounds according to the sanctuary standard, that amounted to a beka, or half shekel, for every registered person aged 20 and over, a total of 603,550 men. They used the 3¼ tons of silver to cast the bases for the sanctuary and for the hangings, 100 bases at 64 pounds each. They used the remaining 37 pounds to make the connecting hooks on the posts, and the caps and bands for the posts. Bronze. The bronze that was brought in weighed 4,522 pounds. It was used to make the door of the tent of meeting, the bronze altar with its bronze grating, all the utensils of the altar, the bases around the courtyard, the bases for the gate of the courtyard, and all the pegs for the dwelling and the courtyard.